Well, I mean, I guess he could show up and continue to show what this case was all about in the first place. And that is, it was for a political talking point. This case should have never been brought. It was brought by a partisan prosecutor. If Donald Trump weren't Donald Trump and he weren't running for president, this case would never have been charged with felonies this way. It's a complete and total sham. It's a kangaroo court. Of course he's not going to be punished for it, because the only reason they ever did it was so they could try to call him a convicted felon during the election, which they, of course, did. And then the American people soundly rejected this naked partisan politics. If you're watching New York City news right now, you got people being burned on the subway, folks running around with all kinds of violence in their past and not in jail, and the criminal justice system is being used on Donald Trump. Take a hard look at who you're electing.
So these ridiculous wannabe mafia bosses in the New York Democratic Party simply will not go away. Yesterday, it was announced that Donald Trump would be sentenced by Judge Juan Merchan in that ridiculously bogus hush money criminal conviction case that took place, obviously, infamously, that everyone knows, up in New York. So yeah, Trump will be facing a sentence for that conviction. But there are multiple sides to the story, because at the same time, while they're going to be doing a sentencing proceeding, the judge did acknowledge in this situation that Trump would not be sentenced to prison. He basically says in the statement that, well, you're about to be the president. We can't exactly send you to prison. So obviously the liberals are not happy about that. They're like, no, somehow still, they're holding out hope that you're going to send Trump to prison right before he becomes president, and somehow that's going to work. Obviously, I shouldn't say it's that obvious, because there is a chance that the Democrats still try to do something that ridiculous. But for now, that is not what is going to be happening. So I guess there's good news in that and there's bad news in that. The good news is obviously Trump will not be going to prison. This is a bogus case, should have never been brought, much less convicted to begin with. But at the same time, why are you even sentencing, right? It's like, it's just ceremonially to show, hey, look, we succeeded in our witch hunt. We're still going to go through with it, even though it's totally performative. So ultimately, I don't want to say it is what it is, because this is still a very serious threat to American democracy, which they always talk so much about. Yeah, it still signifies that the justice system was weaponized against our political opponents. But with that said, at least we can take solace in the fact that the folks over at CNN did not sound all that happy when they found out that Trump would not be going to jail. And here's Scott Jennings to set them straight and just tell them the honest truth and the reality. And I couldn't agree more. Take a listen.
To be no actual punishment for it. So should Trump do anything about it?
Well, I mean, I guess he could show up and continue to show what this case was all about in the first place. And that is, it was for a political talking point. This case should have never been brought. It was brought by a partisan prosecutor. If Donald Trump weren't Donald Trump and he weren't running for president, this case would never have been charged with felonies this way. It's a complete and total sham. It's a kangaroo court. Of course he's not going to be punished for it, because the only reason they ever did it was so they could try to call him a convicted felon during the election, which they, of course, did. And then the American people soundly rejected this naked partisan politics. If you're watching New York City news right now, you got people being burned on the subway, folks running around with all kinds of violence in their past and not in jail, and the criminal justice system is being used on Donald Trump. Take a hard look at who you're electing. It's Alvin Bragg and this judge. These are the kinds of people.
Yeah, exactly. That's always what it was about. They were hoping it would take him out of the race. They were hoping at the very least that the label of convicted felon would ensure that the American people couldn't vote for a convicted felon, would they? I mean, people wouldn't do that. Except when people understand that the entire thing is performative, it is political, and especially when they see I don't even want to call it naked hypocrisy, it's something worse than hypocrisy, in the fact that, as Scott Jennings points out, you have all these crazy criminals running around on the streets, and you're told that the guy running for president is the biggest criminal of them all. You don't really buy that, do you? Really? So yeah, obviously I could not agree more. By the way, guys, do us a big favor. If you're watching right now and you're not subscribed, make sure you are subscribed, okay? That's the best way to ensure we can keep doing these videos. Best way to support the work. Also totally free. Please hit that red button down below. Now, as you could probably expect, a lot of the other facets of CNN are not so happy with the fact that Trump's not going to jail. They're, basically saying, no, but we want to do it, even though it's totally unrealistic. So, yeah, take a listen.
Tay, is this a kind of Goldilocks decision by the judge here to give people who want Trump to have consequences a conviction that is upheld, but not have to deal with, a sentence which, frankly, was unlikely to actually happen given that he's about to be the president of the United States.
No.
So wait, there you have Abby Phillips. I don't want to gloss over this. That's a pretty obvious admission that the entire thing is political. Oh, we're just trying to appease both sides and make it, both people happy, and it's performative. Yeah, so it was a political stunt all along? Is that what you're saying? Thanks for admitting it. I don't know. I'm just saying, I was told for the longest time, nobody's above the law. This is amazing use of the American justice system. This is important. We have to hold people accountable. No, it was a political stunt the whole time. I don't know, just saying.
Sugarcoated. I think this is a slap in the face to the judicial system. We tell the jurors when they come into that room that your job is very important. This is very serious. We expect them to pour through the information, which they did. They came back with a decision, and now the judge is saying, essentially, it doesn't matter. You found them guilty, but I'm not going to assess any penalty at all. I'm not saying you had to put Trump in jail. That's not likely or reasonable. But there are fines that could have happened, up to $170,000 in fines. Why not assess that and say you were found guilty? Here's a consequence so America can know that if you do something wrong, there will be a penalty to pay.
Yeah, well, buddy, you're right about one thing. It was a slap in the face to the American justice system. And thank you for, in your own sort of weird roundabout way, still admitting that the whole thing was political. Okay? You're asking yourself, why are there no consequences? I understand the guy's probably a liberal. He seems to be talking in that way. But still, the admission that you're making is that the whole thing was a political stunt. Thank you. So conservatives are right. Just saying.
And remember, the original purpose of what at least Trump world felt that this was happening was to try to damage President Trump in his presidential run. Hopefully this will take him off the sideline. Democrats were all over the country saying, if you look at the polls, he's going to lose this much Republican support if we can just get this conviction, just this conviction. And it backfired on him. So I'm not surprised when we get to the very end that it just turned out to be a farce from, it's a farce at the end, just like it was a farce from the very beginning.
It was a witch. It was a witch hunt from the very
to
beginning.
Dante's point, there was a jury trial. And
yeah.
He was convicted.
But he was convicted in what really was a witch trial. I mean, the whole thing from the very beginning was politically motivated. And like you said, I mean, during the election, we saw how the American public felt about it. They felt that it didn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't matter. How did that work out for you Democrats? Not so well, obviously, as you can tell. We try to tell you. But, you never listen, so.
Why even have him appear if the judge has already made a decision that there isn't going to be any kind of fine, there's not going to be a probation, there's not going to be any jail time? What's the point?
He said he can appear virtually,
right,
which, again,
right.
You're giving that concession. I understand it's the incoming president of the United States, but I don't want the point to be lost that there was a jury trial where that jury sit through and heard evidence, and whether or not Trump should have been charged, that's not what we're talking about. He was, and he was found guilty based on the evidence. So you can't ignore that and say it was a political witch hunt because a jury said he did something wrong, but now the judge is saying he won't be punished.
The judge, he is not saying that the jury's verdict is invalid. He's just saying, of the options I have available to me, I'm going to choose the one that has basically no penalty. Isn't that an option that would have been available to him anyway?
No, I don't know of an option where someone is convicted of 34 felonies and at the end of it you say, okay, all right, we got you, but there's nothing that's going to happen to you as a result. That's just not how our legal system works, and we don't want people to think it works that way.
First-time offender, no priors.
For all of the talk.
Yeah, again, I just find it so funny that this guy right here is still in his own way, right? Again, what is he admitting? The whole thing was political. Now, he sounds disappointed about it because he's like, oh, why didn't Trump face real jail time? How come we're not treating this like a serious conviction? Because it's not a serious conviction, dude. It's not. But with that said, the silver lining of the entire lawfare situation, which I'm not happy about, and in no way should we be celebrating, but it was kind of inspiring to see in the 2024 cycle how the American people just saw through it so transparently. They literally did not care. Even in, remember the polls, Trump versus Biden right after that conviction? They virtually did not even change, right? By the end of June, Trump was at about the same place he was before. Then we know how the debate went. People didn't care. They saw right through it. And I think that was an inspiring moment in America when everyone stood up and said, we're not going to stand for this. And then on November 5th, we know what happened. So, yeah, let them be bitter. Let them cry about it. The witch hunt didn't work. Regardless of how bad it was for our country, which it was, it didn't work. That's the silver lining. And with that said, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.